Hello everyone, my name is Alex. I'm a 2000 rated over-the-board chess player, and today we are only 24 elo away from the 2000 rapid rating that we're going for in this speedrun, where I try to explain my thought process as best as I can for your education and entertainment. And here we have a Caro Kann, which is rather fitting. Okay, exchange variation. We may get the Panov, which is what I personally play against the Caro. We may also get bishop 2 d3, which is a more classical version of the exchange variation. And I have some very interesting lines against that, which I've played in some previous videos. But okay, my opponent goes for the Panov, and this is really, really tough, because against the Panov, you kind of don't get to play a Caro. And, like, that sounds weird, but because white is, just chopping at your d5 pawn with his e and c pawns, you can't really get the pawn chain in the center that is very typical in a Caro Kann. If there were, say, no exchanges made, or maybe only one exchange made. So in this structure, at some point, either you will take white will take you, or white will push c5. And in all of those cases, it's a completely different game compared to if this pawn were not on c4. It just completely changes the structure. So it's a very important version of the Caro Kann to try to be aware of and have experience in the positions of, because, as I said, it's completely different to anything normal. Personally, I really like g6 in this position. I think I used to play e6, which the engine considers to be the best move for black. But there's also bishop g4, which leads to some forced endgame sort of lines, which I don't really like for either side, to be honest. So, like, with the white pieces, for example, in this position, I play bishop g5 rather than knight to f3 to avoid the endgame, which I'll show you after the game. And here, I don't like bishop g4 going into the endgame, and I also don't like e6, because even though I used to play it, it's perfectly viable. You can play it, but you kind of have to suffer for a long time, in my personal opinion. And you have to try to make e5 work at some point, which can be really, really hard to do. And, white, personally, I like to play c5 lines against e6 and try to really suffocate the black position, and I have great success in that. So my opponent goes bishop g5, which is immediately going after the d5 pawn. So I believe the move is bishop 2 e6, because we don't really want to play pawn e6. One, that pins the knight to the queen. Currently, the knight can move to a square like e4 under certain circumstances where it can be quite strong. And also, if we go e6 and put all of our pawns on light squares like this, it blocks the development of our light squared bishop, and also just weakens the dark squares in general, which we don't really want to do. And it means that we can't develop as quickly. Bishop e6 obviously develops a piece, allows the rook to come into the game potentially quicker than it would if we were to put the pawn on e6. It looks a little bit silly having the bishop blocked behind our pawn like this, but it's not as bad as it may look, because obviously we need to defend d5. If we play a move like bishop g7, then white will just do something like take, 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 and win a pawn, which isn't actually that bad all the time. You can actually sacrifice a pawn like that sometimes and play against the double pawns for white, but I don't like that personally. I consider it a bit unnecessary, but you can play the Panov in so many different ways. This is just how I like to play it. And then bishop g7, we're going to castle. We have the option to take on c4, but we always have to be careful of d5 ideas. And I don't know, maybe we can consider knight to e4 in some lines, hitting the bishop, hitting the knight. But one of the ideas of bishop to g7 is to try to gang up on this d4 pawn in the long run, because most times white will either take on d5 or we will take on c4. Or even if white pushes c5, in all three of those cases, and he pushes c5, d4 is a target, right? d4 is a clear target. So, like, here, we could even consider the immediate knight to e4, which threatens something like take, take, and take. and we just win a pawn, because we distract this knight away from defending d4. Which, as I'm looking at it, it looks very tempting to go for the immediate knight e4. I'm not sure pushing c5 was the best shout for white here. And this is one of the other reasons I like to fianchetto the bishop, rather than developing it to a square like e7 and playing e6. Because c5 can restrict the bishop really, really badly on this diagonal. Whereas if we bring it to this diagonal, c5 doesn't matter. It potentially weakens the pawn, because if we win d4, c5 is going to probably fall next if we can stop b4, which we are doing currently. So, okay, let's say knight e4. If white takes and takes, we kick the knight, we win d4, all is good. If knight e4 and white castles, take, and we're up a pawn. And if white takes on e6, we can take back with the knight. White could go after d5 there, but we could also take with the pawn and castle and get an open f-file and play something like e5, and that also looks very strong. Even though it looks weird to double the pawns like that, it looks alright. So what else can white do? He could play a move like bishop to e3, just getting the bishop out the way and defending d4, which would, I suppose, threaten knight takes e4. We could play queen a5 in that line, pinning the knight and threatening to win a pawn. If queen b3... Is queen b3 a good move? Hits b7, loses a defender of d4. We could go for a queen trade, potentially. That looks interesting. Alternatively, we could just castle and get the king out of the center and then continue with our ideas. We could also consider bishop to g4, trying to remove a defender. Or we could go knight e4, bishop e3, bishop g4, which is also interesting. I think I'm going to go knight e4. It's a very thematic idea. Also, if we delay castling, it means that... Oh, no. Sorry, I was going to say it means the king defends e7. So if we move the queen, there isn't any bishop e7 ideas. I know the knight also defends e7, though, but the knight is probably going to take on d4 if we can win a pawn. And the queen might go to a5, or maybe to d4 if an exchange happens here. So it's interesting. I feel like we have very good pressure here. And I think this is very, like, kind of the epitome of this fianchetto setup against the Panov. Because we've successfully secured our center. Because white has played c5, which, again, I'm not sure was the best idea. But, okay, he's played it, so, you know, it is what it is. We've opened up our dark square bishop. Our light square bishop isn't the best, but like I said earlier, we bring it to e6, but that doesn't mean it can't go to g4 later, right? And then we don't even have to play e6 now, because d5 isn't under as much pressure. So he goes bishop e3, as expected. Taking here, I don't think helps us. It just opens up the b file against our b7 pawn, so I don't see what we're accomplishing. Bishop g4 was the move I was intending to play. Is it that good, though? Because we're not actually threatening anything. So maybe queen a5, queen b3. Queen a5, queen b3. Queen b4. We could just castle. Because if castles take, well, you still can't go for that. Because after you move the knight, you still lose d4. So maybe castling is the easiest thing to do. But just because it's the easiest, does it mean it's the best? That's another question. What should we go for? Queen a5 is tempting. But queen b3 counterattacks. And I'm not sure what we're doing there, other than trading queens. A move like rook b8 feels flimsy, because the bishop can come to f4 and hit it very easily, and we have no good way of blocking that attack. Queen a5, queen b3, queen b4. If white takes us, then, like, okay, we have good pressure with the knight. But even then, there's bishop b5 check, which puts us back. So I think I'm just going to castle. I think I'm just going to castle because white can't take. White loses d4 because the knight has to move, which means white will only have 2 defenders at most on the d4 square. And we have 1, 2, and 3 because the d file opens up for our queen. So you can't take. And you also can't get away with knight e5 because I'll just play take, take, and be up a pawn. So white also castles. Okay, we could go bishop g4, but again, I don't think we're doing anything. After h3... Oh my god. h3, take. What have we accomplished? So, okay. Take. Queen a5 is interesting with pressure. Queen b3 defends both. And again, I'm not really sure what we're doing there. b6 might be a good shout. Trying to open up the b file to go after white's b2 pawn. b6 is a very common pawn break in these positions. e5 is also a common pawn break, but I'm not sure I want to move my bishop yet. Because again, g4, h3, I don't want to make this trade too early, I don't think. Because that will just help white become more active. Bishop f5 doesn't seem to make any sense. White still can't play take. b6 looks interesting. If bishop to b5, which is a very common idea in the Panov to go after this knight. Do we want to go knight a5? b4 looks problematic. We could just defend the knight with a move like queen c7, or even bishop d7 hangs the pawn on d5. b6, bishop b5, knight b4 makes no sense. Do we want to go... No, if a6, then knight a4, knight b6, and we're busted. So we can't do that. a6 in these structures is often a horrific move because the knight lands on b6, and our rook more than likely will be lost in lots of those cases. So, okay, is there any value in taking? It just seems to blunt my bishop because d4 is well protected. Maybe we should... No, I'm trying to make an e5 idea work, but I feel like it's premature. So it feels artificial. If b6, bishop b5, I can't go bishop d7 because I lose. Or can I? Bishop b5, bishop d7, knight d5, knight d4, bishop d7, knight f3, queen d7, queen e4. There's queen e4 at the end of the line. Wait, am I missing something? b6, bishop b5, bishop d7, knight d5, knight d4, bishop d7, queen d... No, not queen d7. No, I don't think it works. Can I just go rook c8 then? b6, bishop b5, rook c8. Take b4 looks scary, though. That looks scary. So maybe I should go queen a5 to stop any b4. Yeah, I'm going to go queen a5. I think the queen makes sense on a5. Because, okay, I mean, if white takes, sure, my queen doesn't open up on d4. But I can always put a rook there very easily. And this d4 pawn is going to be very vulnerable. I don't think that's an issue. I think it's actually incredibly important to control the b4 square. And also, if I go for b6 now, and my opponent tries bishop to b5, well, now I can take on c3, because it comes with tempo on the queen, so you don't have time to take the knight. And after you take, I win the bishop. So that not only stops b4, but also stops bishop b5 once I play b6. And I suppose we have extra pressure on c5, right? We have a lot of pressure. These bishops could open up in the future alongside my queen onto the queen side. If queen to b3, trying to exert control over b4 and b5. Well, you can't play b4 now because your queen is in the way, so b4 is unimportant. He does go queen b3. He's attacking b7, but what do you do after b6? If b6, bishop 2, b5, does that come with the same sting? My queen's perfectly safe. Bishop d2, I can always take it, so that's irrelevant. Oh my god, I just hung my queen. Oh, dude. You are kidding. No. Oh, I just misclicked. I just completely misclicked. I mean, it's not even like my opponent can let me off. As in, he can see I've misclicked because I've just taken an important pawn. So, like, he can't even let me off the hook. And, yeah, I can just resign. Oh my god. That's so sad. That was such a nice position. Yeah, it was minus 0.4. Minus 0.4, perfect position. And I just did not want to play that. I was considering b6, felt a bit premature, we're still better. Ah, man. We're going to have to jump into a second game. That's so dumb. I think we still learned a lot, though, I think, because that was a perfect Panov from the black side, I would say. Yeah, let's just jump into a second game. That's so dumb, man. Alright, well, I'm just going to have to make up for that, then. That's so unfortunate. I need to be more careful with where I'm clicking. But alright. Let's play another game against a almost 2100 rated opponent from the US. So this should be interesting. This may be our highest rated opponent of the speedrun so far, of Series 2 anyway. Might well be. But okay, Vienna Gambit. Alright, this is the bread and butter of the Chess Centurion channel. And I think many of you will be very familiar with this at this point. And I know some people don't like the fact that I play the same openings over and over again. But, like, that's just how chess players play. What? A 2100 just made massive error on move 3. You can't accept that gambit. You can't accept the Vienna Gambit. I mean, you can try, but this is like almost +1 immediately. And that's only if black knows the perfect response after knight to f3, stopping queen h4. This is not the King's Gambit. It may look very similar to the King's Gambit, but the fact that we have knights on c3 and f6 changes it completely. It completely changes it because g5. No, you can't get away with g5. I'm sure you can't get away with that. My opponent's trying to play this like a King's Gambit. I don't think you can. Bishop c4, g4. Can you do that? Can you do that? Knight d4, queen h4, king f1. Feels wrong. Feels wrong to me. h4, g4, knight g5, h6, take. Bishop c4, check. That's got to be winning. That's got to be winning. King e8, queen g4, pawn d5, queen h5, check. King e7, knight d5, check. That looks game over. Castle kingside, win f4. Yeah, this is not a King's Gambit. The Vienna Gambit is not a King's Gambit. You also don't have f6, which is sometimes a move. Because the problem is, with the inclusion of e5 and knight to g8, I have more space than I normally would in a King's Gambit, and I'm also several moves ahead. So I've already been able to bring both of my knights into the game. And the fact that my knight can jump to d5 is a big deal. Because I can put pressure on c7, I can stop my opponent from going d5, and I can go to squares like f6. And also, I'm just better developed. So, okay, I think I have to sacrifice the knight on f7, which is a very common King's Gambit idea. I have never had this position before. I have not studied this. I do not know this from memory, nor have I had any game like this in my life, really, in the Vienna, from what I can remember. So I'm playing purely off of intuition, but I feel like h6 I should just take. Okay, my opponent goes d5, which seems reasonable. Seems reasonable. If d4 h6, this feels a bit more incorrect because I don't have bishop c4. Taking en passant also feels wrong, but maybe it isn't. Because if I take, bishop takes bishop c4, with threatening f7, knight to h6, well then you don't have pawn h6. And then my knight is just on g5 and is an absolute menace. So that's possible. If d4 h6, I can't retreat my knight. And taking on f7 doesn't make sense anymore, because I can't follow it up with bishop c4. So I feel like I should be taking en passant. There is bishop d3, which is interesting. To me, h6 with knight h7, but that looks just ridiculous. It just looks ridiculous. So I'm going to take en passant. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go bishop c4, and I'm going to try to castle, and have a good time. I mean, after bishop d6, bishop c4, my opponent could go queen to e7 check, trying to secure a queen trade, which might actually be okay for me to allow, because I'm not sure it's that good for him. But I could also play king f1, or even king f2. Trying to play rook e1, which looks very interesting. But I think bishop c4 should be a decent move, going after f7. And you can't really go bishop to e6, something like take, and take. e6 is hanging, the queen's coming to h5, or to g7, or to e6, and that just looks like game over. So, knight to h6 or queen to e7, probably the two moves. Queen e7, I think we can get away with king f2, although maybe queen e7, king f2, bishop c5. No, we just have d4. We have d4 there. So knight h6 played, and I think I just want to castle. Looks logical. Castles, pawn d4, threatening the f4 pawn. I don't see a good way for black to respond. Queen f6, knight e4 or knight d5, something along those lines. Looks quite nice. If queen e2, queen e7, queen e7, knight d5, no. c7 is defended by the bishop, so let's just castle. You can give a check if you want. I don't think it helps. I just move the king, and it is slightly dubious castling. But I think it is also in the spirit of the King's Gambit, which is what my opponents turn this into a better version of, I think, based on my limited knowledge of the King's Gambit. I think this is a better version of a normal King's Gambit. I think this is a pretty normal structure to be castling into. Hey? f6? That just looks suicidal. Rook e1 check. King f8. Knight e6 check. Bishop takes, rook takes. I mean, I could go for the immediate knight e6, but making it so that black can't castle first seems pretty logical. Let's go rook e8. Sorry, rook e1. And you can't go to f7, of course, so you can't try to bring your rook in. And if you go to d7, I mean, bishop e6, king c6, something like that, there's just no way you survive that. There's just no way. I mean, I could even leave the king on d7, to be fair, just blocking this. Like, if king d7, I could even play a move like knight to e6 going after the queen. Yeah, so the king moves. Do we have to play knight e6? Can we just not? Is there a better move? I don't know. We could go knight to e4. Could go knight e4. We're not threatening anything. Do I want to take this bishop? Well, I think we're attacking on the light squares anyway. You know, considering my bishop is so strong. So I don't think it's relevant. I think I want to go knight e6. And get rid of his light squared bishop, because his pawns are on dark squares, so his light squares are going to be the weakest point, especially because of my light squared bishop on c4. So I think it's important to get rid of his light squared bishop to make it very hard for him to defend. So after takes, which is obviously forced, because otherwise you lose your queen. And I mean, if you move your king, you will be stepping into some kind of check anyway, so you have to take. And okay, do we take with the rook or the bishop? Not an easy question to answer, I don't think. Although, I think if rook takes, the knight can't move anyway, because I just win g4. And if rook takes, we also prevent f5, opening up any shenanigans over here. Because we just win the knight. So, like, rook e6, f5, take, and we defend h4 anyway. So, I see no reason not to take with the rook. The question is, how do I follow this up? Because I need to get more pieces involved. So probably something like d4. Or maybe knight to e4 going after the f6 pawn is an easy way to do this. Also hitting the bishop. Bishop e5. That's interesting. So also trying to prevent d4, I suppose. Okay, okay. I rate it. I'm trying to... Oh, he's also threatening queen d4, picking up the bishop, so... Queen e2 is an interesting move. Which also stops queen d4 picking up the bishop, because we defend the bishop. Our rook is maybe trapped, but it can't be attacked for the time being, because he has no light squared bishop, and neither of his knights are on light squares, so they can't move to a dark square to attack my rook, which is on a light square just yet. So I have a little bit of time to figure this out. So queen e2 looks interesting, because I think we're maybe threatening to sacrifice the exchange, because I don't really see how black defends this. And then we play d4, bring the bishop in, bring the rook in, bring the knight in. It looks like game over. So, I don't know. Let's say queen e2, knight c6, defending the bishop. Also making d4 very difficult to play. Again, it's unclear how we continue. What about... Does knight d5 do anything? Trying to block the queen and play pawn d4. Knight d5. If queen d7 attacking the rook. d4, take, take, take. That looks no good. What about b3? b3 looks ridiculous, I admit. But we're defending the bishop. And how do you stop bishop a3? How do you stop that? If b3 c5, trying to block the diagonal, bishop a3, pawn b6, trying to keep the diagonal blocked, you could do that. If b3 c5, we also don't have to go bishop a3 there. We could revert plans and do something else. Our knight can't really move in that scenario, though. So a3 c5. What if this is just really simple, like knight e2? Just reinforcing d4. Maybe it's something that simple. Maybe f3 is a problem there, though, because my queen can't see the f3 square. Maybe like, I don't know, knight b5? But then I suppose you can just kick my knight, and I'm just going to have to go back. I feel like b3 is a good move, because even if c5 is played, you're weakening the dark squares. Like, you're leaving behind d6. So, I don't know, like, c5, bishop a3. What am I missing? I didn't think he was going to go for this. What does that achieve? I mean, I suppose if bishop a3, c5, the c-pawn is defended, but it's defended by the queen, which is quite flimsy. You're also potentially weakening the back rank by moving the queen away. Knight d7. Okay. So bishop a3, pawn c5 is forced, pretty much. You could go bishop d6, but I'd probably just take that and ruin the structure. So that looks no good to me. Bishop a3, c5. How do I continue? I can't really move my knight because my rook hangs. I think black's doing a good job of dealing with this position, to be fair. But I'm only down one pawn, and I have the bishop pair, which is hard for him to get rid of. I'm trying to make it as difficult for him as possible to handle this. c5. How do I continue? Do I just go like rook b1, knight e2? And the queen is like... Oh, the queen can go to f2, I suppose. So what about queen e2, preparing like rook f1? Also defends the bishop. If b6, that seems passive. My rook still can't be attacked by any of the black pieces, which is great. He could offer me a rook trade with rook e8, but I don't know, that feels wrong. Oh, how do I do this? I need to get my queen involved, I think. Call me crazy, but queen g1 looks interesting. Offering a queen trade. Because maybe my minor pieces can overwhelm the black position anyway. Maybe not, though, because knight f5 can be played, rook g8. Well, no, rook g8 you line up with my bishop. Also, knight b6 trying to go after my bishop. Maybe not. I did consider bishop to b2, knight a4, but it doesn't feel right. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe threatening to take the bishop is that strong. Like, bishop e2, knight b6, knight a4, hitting the queen. Queen e4. Bishop here, here, here. Maybe it is good. I don't know, maybe I should have done it on the previous move. But no, because then there's like knight c5 ideas. Now the pawn's on c5. I think that's useful. Queen e2 looks interesting, but so does bishop b2. So does bishop b2. And I mean, he can always keep this diagonal shut with b6, right? So I'm going to go bishop b2. I think if I can take on e5, black has an impossible decision to make. Because if he takes with the knight, he gives me f6. And if he takes with the pawn, he gives me the knight. And he obviously can't take with the queen. f3. Oof. Does f3 work? That feels desperate. Or is he trying to go queen to f4 and mate me? Maybe? I have to be careful, because if I play knight to f4, take, queen e4, I think I'm just mated. I'm just getting mated. Maybe. King g1. Can I survive that? He could take on b2, though, and after knight takes, then queen to d4 check picks up the knight at the very least, so... Nah, probably not. Is g3 playable? Keeping the line shut. Knight e4, queen b2, knight g3. Dunno. If take... Yeah, queen f4 was what I was scared of. Queen g1 defending. Also, eyes on c5. Take. Knight d5. Hitting the queen. Queen f5. Hitting the rook. If bishop e5, queen e6... Maybe queen g1 now, offering a queen trade? No, that can't be it. I'm going to take. I'm running out of time as it is. Oh, I just realized that opens up an attack on h4. That's not good. I should not have taken that. I'd only calculated this. But I mean, even then, you can take with an attack on h4, which I didn't consider. Nor did I consider queen f2. I'm going to have to sack, aren't I? I don't think I have a choice. Because otherwise, I just get mated instantly. So I'm going to have to sacrifice. The bishop is too powerful. Okay. Let's deal with the situation at hand. The black king is still weak, but I have no good access to it. Maybe I should have gone for g3, which my gut was telling me, but I just didn't think it was good enough. Knight e4, queen f3, queen f3. G3. Don't think I have enough. I don't know. Maybe I have no choice. But if knight to e4, queen h4, and I'm busted. Queen e1, queen f3. It's no good. Knight e4, queen h4, king g1, queen g... No, queen g3 can't be played. You can go knight f3 check, though. So if knight e4, queen h4, king g2, gf3... I'm also busted. Queen e1, queen f3. king g1. Not convinced. Queen f3. Knight c4, b c4, rook e8. I'm just losing. Just losing. I think I'm lost no matter what I do. I can't believe I blundered that. That was so obvious. f3, I should have gone g3. Yeah, I should have gone g3. Taking was horrific. Even then, though, if g3, queen f2... Can I defend that? I don't know. If king g1, knight f3, I just lose. So, king g2. Still lost, though. You can just take and then win the knight. If nothing else. So I can probably resign. Yeah, there's just nothing. There's nothing. I don't know where I went wrong. I mean, it felt like it was all working. But apparently not. I went wrong somewhere. But I can't believe this was wrong. This just has to be good. I think B3 was the terrible move. No way is it sacking. No, sacking is bad. What should I have done? So B3 is wrong. Knight E2 is one of the moves I was considering. And the engine likes it, but it's not the best move. Not the best move. Not D4, although that's playable. Not D3, although that's playable. Not King H1. No. Okay, I can't figure this out. We're going to have a look with the engine. That is... What did I do? What did I do? Well, as you might expect, the accuracy was horrific. 67.2. That might be the worst I've had on the speedrun, like, ever. My opponent's 77.6. But, like, the opening was so good. You know, the Vienna Gambit, you can't really take. Like, this is bad. G5 is inaccurate. H4 is okay. Engine was D4, but I couldn't figure out what to do against... Oh, it just wants to sack. Oh, and just castle queenside, bishop c4. Yeah, that's just crushing. Okay, but this is still good. D5 is the only move. Everything else loses on the spot. H6, I was going to play take. Bishop c4 is not good because of d5. No way. Queen g4 is best. I mean, everything looks winning, realistically. The king is just so stranded. But d5, ed6 is good. The engine also likes d4, surprisingly. But ed6 is also good. Bishop d6, bishop c4 is the best move. Knight h6. Castles is good. f6 is a mistake. It doesn't like knight e6. Sorry, rook e1. It wants knight g to e4. I considered this, but I didn't really understand what my threat was, because I'm not threatening f6. I mean, black can't castle. That's good. So the engine wants f3. d4, attack it. Okay. So let's say f3 isn't played. Let's say bishop e5, like my opponent did in the game. Then d4. Queen d4, queen d4, bishop d4, king h1. Okay, let's say knight c6. Bishop f4, knight f5. And I'm just completely winning, I guess. I went rook e1. I thought this was smart. King f8. But again, knight g to e4 is better than knight e6. I thought it was a good idea to get rid of the bishop, but apparently not. Bishop e5 is a mistake because of knight d5. Is this just to play d4? I rejected this on the basis of knight c6. The engine literally just wants to play c3, d4. That's all it wants to do. And once d4 is played, I just win. Queen d7. Okay, well then I have knight f6. That's obvious enough. Okay, so let's say... I guess you just don't have moves. Let's say king g7. d4, bishop d6. Oh, my knight... Right. Right, my knight helps the bishop on f4. I went b3. I thought I was smart. Queen d4 is the best move. No way. I thought he was going to go c5. Engine isn't impressed because it wants knight d5 blocking the queen. And then bishop to a3 ideas. Literally just giving this up to trap the bishop. And then the dark squares are just going to fall. That's hilarious. But queen d4, knight d7 is a mistake. We have to find knight e2? And if queen a1, d4. d4 at any cost. Let me just take. And if take... Oh, then we win the queen. Right, so you can't take back. So knight f5, knight h5 only move. Still isn't obvious to me that this is completely winning, but apparently it's good enough. We're just going to take on f6. Bishop a3 is bad. c5, only move. Bishop back to b2 is game losing. I have to go queen g1. I literally considered queen g1. I was literally talking about this move. I just thought it was the complete wrong idea. I thought, I don't know, something like take. And rook e8 was my issue. I was like, well, he's just going to trade off my active rook. And then what do I have? I suppose I'm only down one pawn, though. So it's not that big a deal. Here, if this. Now I'm back in the game, according to the engine. I do have the bishop pair, but... Yeah, bishop b2 is losing because of f3. I just failed to consider this. And g3 does knight f5, apparently. But, yeah, gf3 is terrible. Terrible move. Queen e1. Oh, I didn't even consider queen e1. Monitoring the dark squares. And if queen f4, then I give up a pawn to trade the queens. And try to generate counterplay. See, like, this wouldn't be so bad. I'd have something. Bishop b5, trying to dislodge the knight. And, you know, black can go wrong here. Like, knight b6, and we're almost equal. Like, take, engine wants knight takes, and we have some play, but... Yeah, gf3 just loses. Queen f2, everything is winning. I sacked the rooks, I couldn't figure out anything else, and knight e4 is just... Yeah, I mean, nothing works. Nothing works. Queen e1 was my other consideration, but just queen f3. And I mean, take. This is what I was thinking. Rook e8, queen f2. And the best move for black is like king f7, because I can't do anything. I have no checks. I lost my best attacking piece, and yeah, so knight e4 is desperate. Queen h4 is the best move. If this isn't played, I have some chances. Like, if black goes for a queen trade, for example, I have some chances. Engine likes bishop d5. Apparently that's the only move. I don't know what's wrong with knight f6. Oh, knight c4. Oh, sorry, yeah, you have to save the bishop. And, like, we can play this. We can play this, but this is completely game over, and I can resign here. The best move is to take with the queen and give up the queen for the knight, which is obviously losing, so... That was a rough speedrun episode. Like, a fantastic Caro Kann, and then just completely misclicking in a better position, and then a fantastic Vienna Gambit, and then just completely misunderstanding the position. Yeah. I hope it was still an enjoyable episode, and I am definitely fallible. I'm definitely not the best chess player that ever existed. I make a lot of mistakes, and today shows that. But hopefully, there was still a lot to learn, and a lot of entertainment value as well. So I'm sure I'll probably title this video something funny about me being terrible at chess. I'll figure something out. But yeah, if you want to see a more successful Vienna Gambit, check out the video up here. And if you want to see the previous episodes of the speedrun, check out the playlist down there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in one of those videos.